In this video, I'm going to show you the best settings for the all-new Blackmagic Camera version 3 on iPhone and Android, along with 3 tips to nail perfect exposure with filmic motion blur, white balance, and focus so you can capture video that looks so good, no one will guess it was filmed on your smartphone. The settings and techniques you will learn in this video will apply to all smartphones, and there are chapters in the player so you can find exactly what you're looking for, including for ProRes RAW on the iPhone 17 Pro. So let's dive straight in and start by configuring our settings, which we only need to do once, because once we have the perfect settings locked in, we'll save it as a preset so we never have to do it again. Start by tapping Settings, then under Record, tap on Codec. If your iPhone supports ProRes and you have space to burn, choose 422 for maximum quality on iPhone 15 and 16 Pro. However, these file sizes are huge and overkill for most use cases. So if you want smaller file sizes with 10-bit color information, choose HEVC and select max bitrate for the perfect balance of quality and file size. Next, let's select our resolution and choose 4K. Then let's select our color space. If you're on an iPhone that doesn't support Apple Log or an Android device that doesn't support Samsung Log, just set this to Rec 709 and you're good to go. If you're on an iPhone 15 or 16 Pro, you want to set this to Apple Log. If you're on a Samsung S25 Ultra with Android 16, choose Samsung Log. And if you're on the iPhone 17 Pro or Pro Max, choose Apple Log 2. Capturing in Log will deliver maximum dynamic range and disable digital sharpening. However, it will give you a flat image that requires color correction, but don't worry, we can do that in Blackmagic Camera, but I'll cover that in a moment once we get to LUTs. With our record settings locked in, now let's adjust some key camera settings. First of all, enable vertical video if you plan on shooting anything for social media. If this setting is off, your phone will record in landscape even when held in portrait. Next, turn on lock white balance on record. This will ensure your white balance doesn't shift during a recording, which can be distracting to the viewer and is a clear giveaway that you're filming with a smartphone. Next, change your shutter measurement to angle. I'll explain why in a minute. And if you're on Android, turn increase sharpening off. This will make your footage much more filmic and closer to what you get out of a dedicated cinema camera. I just wish iOS would let you turn this off outside of Apple Log. Next, tap on Media. And unless you're using Blackmagic Cloud to upload proxies while filming, turn off Record Proxy to save on storage space. Now, before we can save this as a preset, we need to make a few more adjustments first in the camera view. Tap on Camera, and first we're going to make sure our device's main wide lens is selected. Whether you're on iPhone or Android, the wide lens, typically sitting in the 22 to 26mm range, has the best sensor and the widest aperture, meaning it can let in more light, and therefore it delivers the best quality video with the lowest noise. Next, tap on FPS and choose 24 to mimic the standard frame rate for motion pictures. Next up, let's set our stabilization to standard on iPhone, and if you're on Android, set this to OIS for best results. However, if you're prone to a case of the shakes, select standard to also apply electronic stabilization if your device supports it. And lastly, this final step only applies to those of you who chose Apple Log because you're on the iPhone 15, 16 or 17 Pro, or you're on a Samsung capturing in Samsung Log. As you can see, our live preview is low contrast and desaturated. This is what you want from Log video, as it's capturing all that additional dynamic range and image information, but it makes exposing your shot hard. What we're going to do is apply a LUT or lookup table to bring it back to Rec 709 so we can more easily evaluate and set our exposure. In Blackmagic version 3, we now have a dedicated LUT button in the camera HUD. On iOS, we get a dedicated Rec 709 conversion LUT to normalize our image built in addition to creative LUTs. However, this built-in Rec 709 LUT on iPhone isn't great. While fine for evaluating exposure, you will want to avoid applying this to your final recording as it delivers beetroot skin tones and is oversaturated with too much contrast. For best results, you want to import a LUT designed to deliver a film look for Apple Log or Samsung Log. To do this, open Settings, LUTs, LUTs Manager. If you're going to be using an imported LUT and want a clean LUT picker in the main UI, I'd recommend you disable Enable Blackmagic LUTs. Then scroll down and tap Import LUT. This will launch your files browser where you can navigate to wherever .cube LUTs are saved on your device. I'm going to use my epic gloat LUT, the greatest LUT of all time, which is the ultimate Rec 709 LUT for Apple log and Samsung log, delivering Alexa skin tones on steroids with smooth highlight roll-off and a filmic contrast curve for the ultimate film look. And if you want to check it out, you can save 20% with the link in the description. Once you've selected your preferred LUT, ensure that the LUT color space tag is set to Rec 709, then jump back to the camera, tap LUT, and turn it on. Currently our LUT is acting as a display LUT. Now we can better evaluate our image in the preview only, knowing that when we apply the LUT later in post, it will match perfectly. However, we are still recording in log. Applying your LUT in post is an extra step, but one that most pros will prefer for greater flexibility. However, if you want to cut out this extra step, turn Record LUT to Clip On at the bottom of the LUT HUD control. This will burn the LUT in, so what you see is what you get for your final recording. I'm going to leave this off, as I like to do this later in post, but it's totally up to you. Now, whether you're on iPhone or Android, the next step is the same for all. Because we have our key settings locked in, tap on the 3 dots on the left of the camera HUD, tap on Presets, then tap the plus button to save your current settings as a preset. Give it a name, and tap Save. Now you never have to work through this process again. Literally everything we just changed can be loaded instantly just by tapping on this one preset. So those are the best record settings for pro video in Blackmagic Camera on iPhone and Android for the highest possible quality, but settings on their own won't deliver amazing footage, they're just half of the equation. Next, let's dive in and look at 3 essential techniques for exposure, white balance, and focus to help you achieve perfect results. Do you remember how earlier we changed the shutter measurement from shutter speed to shutter angle? This means that our shutter value, which is used to set exposure and affects motion blur, now shows in degrees up here. And the reason we set shutter measurement to angle instead of speed, which displays it as a fraction, is because it's going to make it easy to achieve what's called the 180-degree shutter rule without performing mental math, regardless of your frame rate. And this legendary rule is your shortcut to cinematic motion blur. On the left of the screen is a video captured with a 180-degree shutter, and on the right the same shot captured at a much faster shutter speed. Notice how smooth and filmic the footage on the left looks, and how jittery and unnatural the footage on the right is. The footage on the right is typical of smartphone video and is a telltale sign that it was captured on a smartphone, so with our shutter angle set to 180 degrees, which we can do by tapping on the shutter value, then using the slider to select 180 degrees, tap to lock the padlock. We don't need to touch it again as it won't change until we manually unlock it. That leaves us with ISO to set our exposure. Whereas the shutter value affects the amount of motion blur in your image, ISO affects the amount of noise. And all you need to remember is lower is better, because the lower your ISO, the less noise that will be introduced into your image. However, if you're in a bright environment with your shutter locked at 180 degrees, you'll soon realize that no matter how low your ISO is, your shot is still blown out. So how do we achieve the 180-degree rule in bright conditions? Well, this is where you're going to need one of these, a variable ND filter. This covers your lens and reduces the amount of light reaching the sensor. Just think of it as a pair of sunglasses but for your phone. A variable ND lets you turn the filter to adjust the amount of light being let in, and fixed NDs let you choose a fixed strength of light reduction and deliver less color cast than variable NDs, but at the expense of convenience. So now with our shutter locked to 180 degrees, I can make exposure adjustments just by adjusting the ISO in tandem with my ND filter. We need to make sure our exposure isn't clipping, which results in loss of information in the highlights. Unfortunately, right now the histogram isn't perfectly reliable in Blackmagic Camera, so use it in tandem with your eye to look for blown out areas of the image that appear to be pure white and lacking detail. Then just bring it back down as needed using ISO and your ND filter. Again, clipped highlights are a dead giveaway that you're filming on a smartphone, so utilizing these exposure techniques will give you the best looking footage with filmic motion blur. Next, you'll remember that earlier we set white balance to lock on record. This means it won't shift during the recording, but if you want to give it a helping hand, ensure there is something white for the camera to reference in your scene. For best results, use a white balance card like this one that I've linked in the description. Just hold it in front of the camera, fill as much of the frame as possible with it, hit record, then remove it. Now you should have perfect white balance that won't fluctuate through the shot. And lastly, let's talk about focus. If you leave Blackmagic Camera in autofocus mode, you can get great results, but nothing kills a shot quicker than focus hunting when it shouldn't. To avoid this, just tap on your area of interest, then long press the reticle to lock the focus. You can always unlock it by tapping on another point in the frame during a recording. And for best possible results, tap the Monitor Controls Overlay button and turn on focus peaking. Then use the manual focus slider to set your focus. You can still tap a point of interest to use the reticle in combination with the manual slider, and you can quickly revert to autofocus by tapping Auto at the top of the slider if needed. And lastly, let's look at the best settings if you're filming on an iPhone 17 Pro or Pro Max. Just about everything we've already covered applies, including the frame rate, exposure, focus, and camera settings. But under Settings, Record, for codec you have the ability to shoot in ProRes RAW, which delivers the highest quality image on this device. This format requires an external SSD, and I'd recommend Apple ProRes RAW instead of HQ, then tap back. Again, on the iPhone 17 Pro you should select Apple Log 2 for your color space, as it utilizes a much wider color gamut. And under Resolution, because we selected ProRes RAW, this unlocks the ability to film in 4.2K OpenGate, which will utilize your full sensor and provide more information on the vertical axis, ideal for reframing in post. Next, under Camera, you want to scroll all the way down to Reference Source and make sure this is set to Internal. This will deliver a constant frame rate. Lastly, tap on Media, and under Save Clips to, select Files and navigate to your connected SSD, then tap Open. Now when you return to the camera, you're ready to apply a 180-degree shutter for filmic motion blur and capture ProRes RAW OpenGate directly to your SSD. My two favorite SSDs that are capable of flawless ProRes RAW performance at maximum resolution along with the highest frame rates are linked in the description. Now you're ready to capture stunning video on your smartphone using Blackmagic Camera on iPhone and Android. For links to all the recommended ND filters, color charts, LUTs, and SSDs, check the description and let me know if you have any questions in the comments. If this video helped, I'd appreciate a like and a share so others can learn to level up their smartphone video production, and please subscribe for more. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.